Hello everyone and welcome to another speedrun game against Levon, 001. He plays d4. Let's see if we get a Benoni. Right? Benoni, yes. So let's play c5, he captures. So people are going to capture because the pawn is hanging. So it makes sense. We're going to go queen a5 check. You have almost any move is playable there. But we're going to take our pawn back immediately because you guys, your blood pressure gets too high if you don't get your pawn back. He develops a piece. Fine. I think we're just going to bring our knight out, maybe fianchetto since there are no pawns obstructing us in the center, play a modest d6, and we have a decent setup. So let's bring the knight out for an extra layer of protection against his knights. He now closes his pawn chain and opens up his bishop. It makes sense. We're going to do the same, creating our pawn chain, opening our bishop, and blunting his pieces. Multi-purpose pawn move. Sometimes moving the pawn 1 is better than moving it 2. He develops his bishop. What's the threat? Just a pin on the knight. Maybe he wants that pressure, but none of that matters. Easily dealt with. Let's continue our development in this dragon pawn structure where we fianchetto and have harmonious development and a compact but reasonable position. He takes for no reason, giving up the bishop pair, which is not advised, not advisable. We take back with the pawn, helping control the center and his knight, creating a better center for black. He moves his queen forward, offering a queen trade and preparing the possibility of long castle. Black is always happy to queen trade with such a solid position, as he can't possibly be risking anything or be worse out of the opening. You don't want him to take and double your pawns this way. So if you didn't want the queen trade, you would have to move your queen. I don't particularly want to move my queen. So I'm going to take his queen and offer him the chance to blunder as well with knight takes, which looks very natural. And he does. This walks directly into a fork, and when he takes the pawn, that does not compensate him enough. So the game is over in 10 moves. He takes the pawn. He can get a second pawn, but like I said, not enough. Very natural to fianchetto. He might resign, or he might just retreat and prepare castling. He does retreat, and now it seems a perfect time to fianchetto our other bishop. Now our bishops are just devastatingly strong. Yes, there was a pawn hanging. I don't care. We're already going to win no matter what in this position. These bishops will far outclass his knight, and we're up a piece. Even if we weren't up a piece, you could see this dark square bishop is already causing immense problems. Combined with the rook, he won't be able to sustain for much longer. In any case, he played a pawn move to defend a pawn. We're going to castle. Our king is safe. He castles queenside. No problem. Trades or wins when you're up a piece, right? So, well, let's bring another piece in the game first. Let's not get carried away. Let's play a very strong developing move, aiming at his king, coordinating with the bishop. He moves his knight out of the way, attacks some pawns. These pawns are kind of all over the board. There's not much we can do about them. We're not going to try to defend them unless it's super easy to defend. Like, we're not going to contort our position to defend them. But if it's easy to defend and we have nothing better to do, we could. We could. We do have an inactive rook. We could get it in the game. He takes the pawn, but this kind of guarantees trades. Material is technically even because he has 3 pawns for the piece. But the piece should prove more valuable in a middle game like this. So let's see if we can prove that. Right now the threat is the rook and the bishop. So let us move the rook, as our bishop is not contributing much anyway. So we move the rook, protect the bishop. If he takes it, we take his rook, intermezzo, with check. Okay, he doesn't take our bishop, which is weird. Now I'm just going to kick the knight. I don't care about the pawn. I just want to see, because his knights are awkwardly placed now. He goes here. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. It's a bit weird. A bit weird. But okay. What if I go here? Where do you move your knight now? It's very deep in my position, so that's why it's super awkward. So is he going to go here? And he has to go there. Now this forces trades. And like I said, we're up a piece for 3 pawns. But who cares about the pawns? What are they going to do? So we take, and this uncovers the lasers. And now, boom. There we are. We finally collapse his pawn structure. The 3 pawns are now 2 pawns. Cannot possibly be as good as this bishop on the board, right? This pawn and this pawn, they can't compete long term with my bishop. So now I'm going to go here and force one of his rooks off the board, and I'll just have an extra bishop. So let's do that. He takes with the pawn. Okay. Interesting. Now if we can get our rook here, we'd win material. Our bishop's kind of in the way. However, if we can get our pawn to a3, that would also be interesting. Let's push our pawn. I mean, we kind of have infinite time to do what we want. That's not a threat. Wait. If I push my pawn, no, yeah, because I always have a3, so king over doesn't do anything. He plays that, but I have this cheeky move, bishop here, right? If he takes my rook, I take back. If he takes my bishop, I take his rook. This doesn't force the trade. He can move his rook off the file. But in that case, I can infiltrate with my rook. So I guess he saw it. And now the game's just over because we're up a piece. And you can see how the 2 pawns just quite aren't going to... They're not nearly as fast, right? The bishop's just too fast. It's too mobile. It's too mobile. And when you only have a king, as I mentioned, and no piece, you end up in zugzwang. You're forced, because you run out of pawn moves, legally, you're forced to move your king, and you lose the game. He might resign now. He doesn't. Okay, this guy's clinging. He knows he's completely lost. Mr. Aronian over here, 001. We could do whatever we want. You don't need to pay attention to these moves. They don't matter. What matters is, do you have an idea of how you are going to convert this? How would you win this? Are you able to win this? Are you worried that you might mess it up and draw, even though it's so obvious that you're going to win with a bishop? Like, how do you feel about this? Whoa. I almost took this pawn. I actually pre-moved, but then unpre-moved. Because if you take it, that would have been stalemate if he was smart enough to go here. He does go there, but we are not giving him stalemate, right? So we're going to move our king and then move our bishop and make sure this guy has some squares. I don't know why I went to that square. I meant to go to this square. I want to go to this square because I want to get to this square. I want to get to this square so he can't go back to this square. where he's currently going. He has to go down. Then we can push our pawn or eat his stuff. I'm just going to push his pawn, and I mean, I don't know what he's doing. This is dumb. But yeah, so now you can see the power of an extra piece, even when he had 3 pawns for the piece, which is a lot of pawns, right? 3. Taking 3 out of 8 off the board, I mean, that's so quite a lot of pawns to be missing if your opponent has them. But in the middle game, when pieces are flying from one end of the board to the other, or even in endgame, if a rook's going from left to right in one turn, what's a pawn going to do? I don't know. So we have a mistake at 95%, but we're bound to make mistakes, so it's okay. Knight to the center and development. Center and development, and trying to get a Benoni. Okay, so here you can do whatever you want. You can play knight c6 and not go for the pawn. You can go knight a6, try to get your pawn. Queen a5, you can go e6 and try to get your pawn. You can go g6 and ignore the pawn, right? So it's a very flexible position. I show you one option that guarantees the immediate pawn back, but at the end of the day, you are moving your queen multiple times. It's not the best approach, but it guarantees your pawn back. So we try it. He just develops naturally, and development and center. Center, development, and restriction. This is all for development and king safety. Force move, black is already preferred, and better from here on out. Even trade, and the possibility of this type of blunder. It's funny that they're saying fianchettoing is basically just as good as e5. Okay, we're going to play e5 because why wouldn't you? And he blunders. He's supposed to get out of the predicament by going only move to be worse but not losing. Bishop g5. We go knight h5. His knight's hanging, and if he takes the pawn, he's just losing. Well, not losing, he's just a lot worse. h6, bishop has to go somewhere. We kind of kick it around. Has to go here. Then we kick his knight around. Knight has to go somewhere. Then this comes in with the boom. Rook comes back. Then you stick this here. So it's just a long line where you don't win the piece, but his position's terrible. And you have a bishop like this. He doesn't have a light square bishop. Ouch. Interesting. So that's why fianchettoing was as good as e5, because e5 actually doesn't win a piece. So now we know. It's still the best move anyway. And he blunders because he didn't find the counter-attacking move, counter-attacking resource, bishop here. He takes the pawn and loses the piece. Now it's -4. Development, center, and for free. Development, center, and king safety. King safety, development. Development towards his king. Okay, this was my one mistake of the game. It's kind of, I also agree, a lame move because you don't really want to defend the pawn. Like, who cares? And at the same time, like, you do have better things to do. You can also push the pawn probably. You don't even need the rook. It's just a waste of a move. Because d5 he can't take because it's covered. And then you can, yeah, you could have went d5 if you really wanted to. Also, you can move this knight because these guys coordinate. And this pawn's hanging, so knight h5, d5. I mean, my move is also fine. It just doesn't, it's not very productive. It doesn't do much. But okay, black is still -1. A good deal better. And practically speaking, way higher than that. Because For humans, the piece is just way stronger than the pawns. The engine uses perfect pawn play, which is extremely difficult to do. So he goes pawn hunting, and now force move. Says he blunders again. Keeps wanting me to go knight h5, a6. Yeah, we play a6, which is just the most obvious move, just harassing the knight. He goes in here, which looked super awkward, and we find the best move, removing the trade and hunting the knight. Now it's -5 because we're forcing match trades, and we win the pawn at the end of the line. So we're up the piece, and we get some of the pawns back and disturb his pawn structure. Now he has no compensation. That could be worth a piece. A beautiful pawn structure, let's say 3 pawns together that are running down the board, could eventually be dangerous, but 2 pawns separated like this, never dangerous. Now we force trades. Free stuff because trades are wins. And we just have this idea of coming here because it's funny. You don't have to do this, but you could. And there's nothing he can do about it. Where did I move my bishop? Oh yeah, I moved my bishop here to protect the rook, of course. We also had bishop c3. That's true. We also have rook b6. That's true. I only even considered bishop e5. That's funny. He takes, force move, and now you're up a piece. You could just zigzag it infinitely to attack his stuff. His king is not fast enough because once his king goes to one side, you can bounce it to the other. His king can't teleport. That's the power of mobility. So good game. One passive rook move, but the engine's a little harsh. So good luck in your chess. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.